What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is part 2 of the 200 Zoom hand review with the one and only Kruzer. Why are we making content with Kruzer? Well, he is, of course, one of the brand new coaches that's joining the Carrot Corner team. We're branching out. I'm stepping back a little bit. I'm still making content, don't worry. But so are loads of other strong professional poker players that we have sourced and have made sure that all of them are great articulators, good teachers, and strong video producers. We have queued up a bunch of videos and we are launching on April 22nd, 2024. If you're watching this in the future, it's possibly already live. What are you waiting for? Head over to carrotcorner.com, subscribe to our members' video library, and take your game to the next level. With our coaches, we've got lots of content already queued up. I've recorded 10 episodes, of course, of True EV, and we're going to be bringing you episode 2 for free on YouTube before launch very soon, in the days just before we go live with that. Stay tuned for that. And we've also queued up some series because we're big believers in structured content from players that you'll have seen on the Twitch stream or on the channel, like High Stakes Alex or Sebastian, crushers like that. We've got a whole load of other new coaches too that I've found. So you're just going to have to wait and see what they're like. It's just going to be a surprise. So I do hope that you will join us and make Carrot Corner the place of your cash game poker learning. But until then, do enjoy part 2 of this hand review with the one and only Kruzer. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you did not see part 1 of our 200 Zoom hand review with the one and only, the 200 Zoom battler, Kruzer, definitely go back and check that out at some point. But we're back here. We're live again. This is part 2. We have the 8-9 offsuit. Well, Marco, let's see what happens in this hand. I'll let you pick up the commentary from here.
Yeah, let's go. So I'm in the big blind. Small blind opens. I call. 10-8-6. I don't think he can range bet this. And I expect him almost to use like small bets when he does range bet. But anyways, he goes for a check. I'm also going to be checking my hand. I don't really want to get check raised when I have so like a check witty, you know. So my main bluffs here would be stuff like 7x, 9x, you know, some overcards, and then I'm mostly betting my 10x and for value 10x, strong 10x sets, and yeah, checking the rest.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we have just a little bit of everything here. We have a very stable hand. We can handle just about every turn, and the check raise is the thing that's going to decimate the EV of this hand, as you say. So yeah, looks like a good check back. We face the overbet now.
Yeah, we face the overbet delay, which is, you don't see that really often in games on the turn. So in game, I thought, actually I was working on this part of my game that I'm missing raises in spots like this. So I thought I could maybe go for a low frequency raise with my hand. I block 2 pair, I block straights that he might check on the flop and go for a check raise if he's with his plan. So and I get called by worse. I get called by flush draws. I get called by some 9x maybe with overcard, and I fold out overcards as well. Let's say if I was queen jack off, I fold that. It's a win for me. So I go for a low frequency raise with my hand here.
Yep. So this is like, I guess we'd class this in Carrot Poker Skills speak as a hybrid raise, because you can be called by the nut flush draw, you can be called by the combo draw, you can get the fold from the hand that's live, and you can also get folds from hands that are better than you as well, that were value betting the turn. So it's a mixed bag of stuff. I'm safe to say that I'm never finding this in game. Like, I'm not as sick as you. I'm probably just like in the call box here 100% of the time. But I can see a lot of merit to building the raising range here, even against overbet, because Villain appears to have the advantage at the near top, like the near top of ranges. Like, I want to say around like the 85-90% equity mark. He probably has a higher concentration of good stuff, like over pair, 2 pair, things like that we would have bet on flop, pocket 8s, pocket 6s. But we are going to have 5s. We are going to have some value region that we can build here at the very top. And so I guess there's just a very small raise frequency here. I think this reg's going to be shocked by facing raise here because it's like super uncommon that you face a raise from the big blind that checked back here. So this is the kind of line that's going to ruffle a few feathers and throw people out of their comfort zone. Do you ever take lines in poker just because you feel like they're rare and they're going to like throw your opponents off? Is that a part of your game?
If I know the spot, if I study the spot, yes. But if I don't really know what I'm doing, then I just end up spewing or something, you know?
Right.
So if I'm sure like a spot is okay to raise, which this one is low frequency, I checked it later.
Yep.
So I go for it, yeah.
That's awesome. You've done some work on your game and then this spot happens to come up. I think that's my problem. I just get ahead of myself sometimes and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try this. And then I look at it later and I'm like, oh, wow, that's a huge punt. And I didn't actually research that first. And I'm just being way too cocky as usual. And yeah, I think you've got a very humble approach where you're like, yeah, I'm going to study my ass off. And when I get into a situation that I know, I'm going to go for it. And otherwise, I'm going to just do my best to be solid. And I think that's a lot of people could gain by taking that kind of approach.
Yeah, that's what I go by.
Okay, so we go for the raise and villain peels.
And we get pretty much Dream River, disguised Dream River. So I expect once he just calls on a flush draw board, you know, straighty board, I expect him to always fast play. Well, not always, but like super high frequency to fast play his best hands. So if he had straights himself, if he had sets himself, pocket tens, pocket eights, you know. So that's why I think this river is really good for me, because I can still jam my straights, my sets, and I get extra value from these types of hands that I raised on the turn. And yeah, for those reasonings, I think I can go for a shove with any 8x that I raised on the turn.
Yep. So again, love the exploitative backdrop there. I'll just the theoretical backdrop there. I'll maybe just sprinkle some exploitative seasoning on this fine food that you've served up for the viewer. I think that whenever flop goes check check, and then there's aggression later, ranges are it just feels like ranges are wide or should be wide, but actually there's a lot of filtering that takes place on turn, and this is like a really like narrow range node now. And I wonder if people are going to land on river with like too many bluff catchers here. Like I wonder if they're going to arrive here with like too much of the 10x that they've overbet and got greedy and bet called and things like that than they should. So yeah, I think shove is definitely warranted. I agree with your exploitative reasoning as well, that people are going to mainly fast play turn, and probably they should fast play turn a lot here in theory as well with all in. So yep, looks really good.
And we can see what he called me with.
7.
Because it happened exactly what you said. He got really, he didn't know what to do on the turn. It got really an uncomfortable spot for him, right? And then on the river, I guess he thinks that he blocks some of the straights, but I think it's a punt to call this wide.
I mean, I see what he's trying to do, right? This reminds me of like the first hand that High Stakes Alex ever recorded on Carrot Corner, where he like called a triple barrel overbet jam with like a busted flush draw or something like that. And I guess Villain's thought process here, is like, well, I unblock bluffs because, you know, Kruzer's not bluffing me with the ace of clubs in his hand here. Like, that's for sure. And then I don't need anything more than ace high because there's no single combo that beats ace 7 that's bluffing by raising turn, jamming river, and your bluffs are perceived to be king 7, jack 9, like all this sort of stuff. Do you know what? I don't actually like... Okay, it's probably a punt because when you face giant sizing, you have to have positive blockers by this point in the hand against the well-constructed range, which yours probably is. Against like a random player that's not as meticulous as you with range construction, I could see this being a winning call actually on this node. So I kind of have a bit of empathy. As a fellow spewer here that might make this call, I have some empathy for your opponent in this hand. But yeah, pretty painful to lose to the 8-9.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to bluff like 5x here or 6x. I'm just going to check back that on the river and win against his flush draws, right?
Right.
So like he's beating all my bluffs and losing to my value, you know. But it's still an overcall because he has so many better calls to call instead.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Yeah, so really wild hand, this one. great one to bring to the table. This is what we love to see at Carrot Corner. And Kruzer, aka Marco, you are going to be making a new video series for the Carrot Corner subscribers. The service is going live imminently if it's not already live, depending on when this video comes out. And that is going to be reg battles. It's going to be you doing your best to apply the theory that you know against strong players, but also looking to exploit strong players. There's a fallacy in poker that you can only exploit fish and you have to knit it up and be GTO and stay inside a fortress against good players. But I think what you do a really good job of is showing that you can get exploitative against strong opponents as well, but you just have to be doing that in a careful way that's on the right level of thinking. So I'm really looking forward to that content. It's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. We have Jack 5 suited. We plop 2 pair. So and we face a pretty big sizing. So my heuristic for this spot is, I know solver sometimes raises bottom 2 pair, but what I like to play, I always call when I have top and bottom pair, which I explained in one of my videos. And then I would raise like stuff like 7-5 and Jack 7 instead, and then just call these top and bottom always.
Nice. I'm a bit curious. Can you elaborate a bit on why that heuristic is what it is?
I just noticed it in the sims where I studied. It's pretty like decent bluff catcher on like different runouts. You know, when you face double barrel, triple barrel, you know, you have 2 pair. And
okay.
so I guess when you have like higher 2 pair, you unblock the lower calls, the lower 2 pair that he can have. But this way, if you raise all the time, if you raise always the bottom ones, that you get sometimes dominated by the higher ones. I don't know, some small thing.
Yeah.
But this is what I noticed. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So we face a turn pot size. And at this point, I think on a double flush draw board, even on a high SPR, maybe not this high because we're over 100 deep a bit. But if we were 100 deep, I think I would develop some shoves on a super dry board with my straights, because again, I unblock the calls. I unblock his top pairs. I mean, his 2 pairs and sets if I have a straight myself. So I would jam that together with some of the bluffs, like 5x of spades.
Like really high equity bluffs at this SPR, right? Just looking for stuff that's got
some combo draws, 7x of diamonds or some combo draw diamonds, some combo draw spades. And then these types of hands, I would probably always call, and I would call these 2 pairs and other 2 pairs if I don't raise them pure on the flop. Sometimes I won't, but mostly I will. But I'm always calling this, and I have like backup equity with my flush draw, so I don't really need to raise this hand, I believe.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, my first instinct when I saw this was like raising would actually be a mistake with the Jack 5 of spades specifically. And I think we're also at a really like annoying, awkward SPR where we just have to be a bit thicker with our value raises than we would at like 100 big blind starting stacks or something like that. So I think this is like bang on. I think this is just a call for sure. Good stuff. And then the river, kind of like the diamond is obviously not what we want to see here. The 2 pair being counterfeit is not what we want to see here. Pretty much a nightmare river for your hand, but let's see what happens.
Yeah. And then he goes for a really small exploitative c-bet on the river. So this is one of the, I misplayed this hand because I know this strategy, this is like pretty old school stuff that you're trying to induce. Like there's no way he's gonna like value bet an overpair or something that's not a strong hand, like something that's not flush maybe, or maybe he uses it exploitatively with a straight. Let's say he has 8-6 and he's afraid I have flush myself. Then he doesn't know like what sizing to choose. But mostly I believe it's an old school sizing that people use to induce on the river when he uses so small size.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is very bizarre because like reopening this spot on this particular card with one pair, as you say, is just like kind of ridiculous. Like, why would you ever want to put yourself in that situation if you've got queens here? Like, where, oh, I'm just going to open the door to villain jamming all their nuts against me and bluffing me sometimes. I just don't think it's happening. So I agree. Like, the human range here is just going to be stronger than that. And then, like, I guess this is like a real rational, like, human psychology spot where you're kind of thinking after a reg has bet fifth pot in position in the river, how willing are they going to be to fold to a raise, given that they know that this is like very easy to just level yourself into attacking? There's just so many hands in your range here, and I call this the cornered animal scenario, where the person that's in your shoes here that has like the jack, for example, or jack five or whatever it may be, a hand like this, doesn't want to call because you feel like this is just like never a bluff or grossly under bluffed, and data would support that, right? A lot of MDA here shows that people just don't bluff this line, even though they only need to bluff it like 16%. They're just not even hitting that, not anywhere near. It's like, you know, single digits. So the cornered animal thesis is that you are now backed into this situation where no option feels viable. Call doesn't feel viable. Fold feels insulting. And therefore it's easy to land on raise by a process of like survival instinct / elimination. And once you start landing on raise with one pair and just doing it, or even two pair, like whatever you want to say about blocking the five here, I think it's all irrelevant at the end of the day, the way people are constructing here. You can end up over bluffing grossly. So I'm guessing that's what you think happened. You just sort of ended up over bluffing grossly based on this, and you think that the player's very likely planning on making a lot of calls here after this sizing. So yeah, really, really cool spot. And I love that you brought a hand, like you're confident enough in your game to show hands that you screwed up and just say, hey, I messed this up. And that is the mark of like a healthy poker game. You don't want to be taught, guys, by a coach that can't accept liability for anything. That's why in my videos, I'm always clear to say, I should have done this, I should have done that. And here you have it, you know, a guy that's a professional at this game that plays very well, usually putting his hands up and saying, yeah, I messed this up. So that's what you want to see. That's human accountability.
And he called me pretty fast, so that was his plan to induce. Right. And if I thought really hard about this, with all the things that I just said, you know, that people induce with these sizings, I probably wouldn't end up doing this play, but my GTO blocker mind took over, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I have like unblockers too. I mean, I have blockers his nuts and stuff. To be honest, I expected him to sometimes maybe even use, as I said, maybe use this sizing with a straight. You know, then a straight would 100% have tough times calling versus a jam, right? So maybe he would fold some of those straights.
Maybe. It's just, I think it's really hard psychologically when you've bet so small and you know how it's going to be perceived to then actually fold. I think it's just hard. If you have any ego whatsoever, and most regs have some level of ego, that's the problem for them, right? Like a lot of people have an ego problem in poker. It's just how poker players are. I think it gets really difficult for you in the heat of battle here as villain to find a fold here. But the other thing I want to say is that, you know, we're playing poker in an environment where we have like 15 seconds on the clock. Like if you imagine like Magnus Carlsen sitting down and battling against Fabiano Caruana, whoever, like in long play chess, and they have 3 hours on the clock to solve a position, and we have 10 seconds to solve a really, really complicated spot that we've never been in before and will probably not be in again for another 2.5 years, and we have 10 seconds to solve it. And it's like, yeah, you're going to go wrong sometimes. So, you know, humans are very fallible. It's so hard to play Zoom because not only are you playing against like a tough pool and you're not able to table select for win rate or bum hunt or anything like that, but you're also having to act quite quickly a lot of the time, depending on whether you've built up time banks or not. And when you first sit down on stars, time bank is nothing, right? So if it's the start of your session, you may just have like 6 seconds to solve that spot, which is horrendous. Okay.
So we have sixes, calling it mostly folding, but again, calling it low frequency of the time. So we face this really, again, I would say old school size, because I think he should be c-betting like bigger on this type of board.
Yep.
And not go for a smaller c-bet. So against bigger size, I think my hand would be, indifferent, close to indifferent already. Against this size with a diamond, I think I always have to call.
Yep.
So we face a double barrel. And we have a lot of hands in our range here that have a decent amount of equity. And we have to like continue some of them, fold some of them. So sixes have like open ender. I'm always calling that hand.
Yep.
And then like jacks, nines, I have to choose between jacks and nines, like which of them I have to start folding already at a mix. Probably nines.
Nines is open ender as well, though, right?
7, 8. Oh yeah, true. So yeah, I don't think about. I think we have a lot of continues here, so we can't call all of them. So we need to like start folding some of them. Maybe sixes, nines. Nines also block some of his bluffs. I think I would choose sixes instead. And then we have flush draws, like stuff like 10 jack.
I guess my other thought with sixes is like on the 9 river, like we actually just get coolered way more often than we do with nines. Like at least with nines, like when the river is a jack or a 6, like we have a really good hand. But with sixes, when the river is a 9, we have a really bad hand. Like, well, not a really bad hand, that's a bit harsh, but you know, we're losing to any jack semi-bluff now, which is a lot of villains bluffing range. So I'd rather have 9s than 6s. However, I totally hear what you're saying. It's like, where do our folds come from on a turn like this where realistically, this is the sort of spot in theory where because the turn is so good for our range and it does boost our equity so much, villain is meant to be really, really well behaved, right? And like really in line and not bluffing very often and just being super selective. And if he's achieving that, then it wouldn't shock me if we began to fold like pair no redraw that looks like it should never be a fold. Like something like ace 8, right, strikes me as like a clear fold in this spot if he's constructing well. And I don't even know about something like queen 10, like whether that would be a continue or not in this spot if he's constructing well. It might be that queen 10 gets replaced with 9s and 6s at some frequency or something like that, or it mixes now or something like that. But I get your point. Where do the folds come from?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like 10x could be like middling 10x could be fold, and then we call this open ender pairs instead. But that depends on the villain.
I wouldn't worry about it, Marco, because the chat pros are about to tell you what you should defend exactly. So you just read the comment section and then you'll become an absolute high stakes baller by doing that.
Yeah, I will read them. And so we get this jack on the river. So now some of our hands improve, our nines improve, our jacks improve, jack 10 improves. So he has to be checking a lot here on a 4 straight river. And I will struggle to find bluffs. So what I think about this spot is I think I need to like bluffs these 6s, this 5-6, which if I have that 7-6 over my busted diamonds, even though I know some people like always say this, I'm at the bottom of my range, I have to bluff, you know, which I don't really agree with 100% sometimes, because in this spot I have like those king queen of diamonds, I have ace-x of diamonds that are obviously bottom of my range because they don't have a pair, but with them I unblock his auto folds, right? The hands that he will bet fold. So in these spots I choose these hands that have some showdown value, but they unblock the folds from his range, right?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I obviously would bluff with like king queen of diamonds in this node because I think that like the way the action's gone in GTO, you have more fold equity than a break-even point. Like I think you get more than MDF here in terms of fold equity.
Yeah, true.
But if you only bluff with like king queen of diamonds and king jack of diamonds, well, that's hit a pair, so that's out. You see what I mean? It's so difficult to actually avoid just hitting upon showdown value when you're listing hands that you could bluff with. So yeah, I agree. I think like 6s and things like that are very near the bottom. And to clarify that in a more theoretical sense, when should we bluff when we're at the bottom of our range? Not randomly on the turn when we're just choosing whether to double barrel a neutral world for us. Like it's not like, oh, I have 4 high on the turn on, you know, king 10 9 8, so I should bet because I'm at the bottom. That makes absolutely no sense. You know, bluffs there need to be like somewhat equity driven. And on the river, it only makes sense to say you should bluff the bottom when you're in a scenario where you actually have an EV advantage in the spot and where the fold equity is more than the break-even point. And that's lots of action sequences that go bet, call, check, or check, bet, call, check. Anytime the aggressor really starts betting and then starts checking, most of those, vast majority of those, you're going to have an EV advantage range versus range on river, and you're going to want to bluff the bottom. But in all of the triple situations, right, where you've just been like blasting away continuously, for example, you can't just bluff because you're at the bottom of your range, because there you have to be selective with blockers because you're no longer getting that excess fold equity. So here I'm all for this, and I'm all for bluffing like tons of hands like this and spots like this. And I think it makes sense that you need to dig deeper into the troves of showdown value here to bluff, because you don't land on this river with air very often. And even though you're getting a lot of fold equity, well, especially because you're getting a lot of fold equity, that's why you should be turning hands that do win some of the time by checking into bluffs, because the EV of bluffing them can be higher than the EV of checking them, even though they do have a positive check EV. So that's a really important thing that people need to take away from this. And we do talk about that a lot in grade 2, especially of the Carrot Poker School. But yeah, I like this play a lot.
I agree. I agree with everything you said, yeah. And he called me down pretty light, I'd say. With King of Diamonds as well.
Looks like a really bad bluff catcher, doesn't it, at face value?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, King Queen of Diamonds is only one combo, but this is not blocking a single value bet. And he could easily block value bets in this spot just by having a pair on the board or something. Like you have a 10, you block 10-9. And it's hard to block more air than this as well, because King Queen of Diamonds, while it's only one combo, it's still a decent enough part of your bluffing range on river, because this is a small range spot, right? There just aren't a lot of combos here in either range after this action sequence anyway. So this looks like a pretty bad call to me, actually. Unlucky.
Yeah, he improves. He also improves to some jacks, some 9x himself, that he has better calls on this river. So if he calls like every overpair, I think it's an overcall already.
Yep. I'm actually quite surprised to see this. I think most people are folding this hand pretty happily in this spot, but I guess you ran into a guy that was in a stationary mood or something.
Yeah, happens.
All right, shall we do one more hand and then we will wrap up this video? This has been awesome. I hope you guys are enjoying the level of analysis here. I always feel like having guys like you on the show, Kruzer, like you bring out the kind of the best in me as well, because it forces me to be super like careful with what I say, and I'm picturing that Dexter's Lab villain avatar of yours, and I'm like, I better not get out of line with my analysis, so that's
yeah, I get it.
That's good. All right, last hand then. Let's see what happens here.
Okay, this one. 3-bet, call the 3-bet. He uses a half pot c-bet on this board, which I think is fine. I have a decision with my hand. I can go both ways, I believe. I have to raise some of the pairs, some of the flush draws. And I raise these gut shots as well some of the time, so I go for a raise. He just calls. And I get that flush completing turn. So in this hand, I remember this spot. I think I thought the spade is better for me, but like cutoff versus button is going to have a lot of those ace x of spades, king x of spades, king 6, king 5, king 8. So it's not really that good of a turn for me, for myself, to be honest, which I definitely missed in game, I believe. So I can't. I mean, I'm not saying my bet is a bad bet, but I'm definitely over bet. I mean, I'm betting more on the turn. I'm betting way more than solver would probably.
It's hard though, because in a single raise pot, and most of the check raise flop barrel turn nodes that you've studied would probably be a single raise pot, right? Because it's much more common, and it wouldn't make sense to study like tons of 3-bet pot turn spots after check raise flop, because that's just super rare. And in the single raise pot variant of this spot, you're going to just love this turn. You're going to have 8-9. You're going to have all these flushes. You're going to have all these hands that are just amazing here. But in the 3-bet pot, range composition just shifts in this like subtle but very striking way, where you actually just don't have that many flushes on, especially the Jack of Spades turn, because the Jack of Spades is like your main flush draw here. It's your main flush draw card you probably have with Queen Jack, King Jack, Ace Jack. So
Yeah.
sucks, right? But I guess we have to actually accept that Villain's range is doing really, really well on this card compared to on the single raise pot, and it sucks. But maybe this hand is... Was this hand allowed to bet? Does it have enough equity for block here? Or does the solver think this is like pure give up?
I don't really remember, to be honest. Maybe it might be a pure give up, this exact one, and then we use like 7x instead.
Yep, it's a bit more equity. So as the world gets worse for us, we just require more redraw to be able to invest money. It's kind of standard stuff. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So we hit the 6, and we are not tempted by the mighty showdown value of the pair of 6s, and we decide to follow through. So what's your thoughts here?
Yeah. So on this card, I thought some of my bluffs also improve, like the 5-4 if I have on that on the flop, which is like low frequency, but it is something. And I thought in game that he's going to have a lot of those overcards with a spade, right?
Yep.
Especially if he won't raise them enough on the flop or on the turn. So like a lot of king queen off, ace king off, ace queen off. And yeah, I was mostly trying to make that portion of his range fold, even though I beat them, but I can't really check call the river with this hand. Well, maybe sometimes I can if I like have a soul read. But he also has a lot of overpairs without a spade that have to call the turn versus my small size. So we fold out those hands that we beat, but we also fold out those overpairs without a spade that we lose to. And as I said, some of our 5-4 improves. Some of our we can still jam 8-9s. I believe we can still jam some of the sets, maybe 7s with a spade. Is probably threshold. We get some 7-6 as well from the flop raise, but I don't think that's strong enough to jam at this point. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think I went for overbluff here. Maybe a better bluff would be those king queen offs and ace queen offs that I have myself, but then I also block some of his auto folds, you know. So
yeah.
Double-edged sword.
Absolutely.
In a way.
Yeah, it's not so clear here, like how you should construct your bluffs. I think when you arrive on nodes like this in spots that are good for you, like, yeah, this is fine, and just having these, you're not going to block folds with this combo ever, and that's always like healthy. It just depends like how bad the solver thinks that turn is for you and this board is for you now, and how few flushes you actually have here, right, is gonna affect how often you're allowed to bluff. My instinct is that exploitatively this might be quite good, just because it's annoying that it's cutoff button, as you say. Like if it's like hijack button or under the gun button, this is definitely a bluff because you just don't have like the offsuit ace queen, king queen, like at any kind of frequency, I don't think. So there you can bluff this hand without over bluffing, right? But
yeah,
here it's unclear to me because you do have those other bluffs, and I'd need to see a sim to know like how well those stack up against this hand. But it's a scary spot to face aggression in, and I'm not totally shocked here if people overfold this situation. Like with some bluff catchers, they're meant to call. So yeah, I can get behind this for sure. Does call queens.
I expect them to fold like over pairs without a spade pretty much always.
Yep, and that's a lot of their range here in a spot like this for sure. So I can get behind this. I think this is good.
He's also another note. Another note. He's also going to have 8s and 9s with a spade that call flop and call turn, and then like now their third pair or whatever. And I guess people would be not comfortable calling those on the river. You know, third pair, relative hand strength over absolute hand strength stuff.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So we might get extra fold equity from that as well.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, this has been another really enlightening video. I feel like it brings out the best in me, as I say, and I've definitely learned some things today going through these cool hands. And we'll get you back on the show again at some point in the future. We'll get you back on the channel. And of course, to get loads more content from Kruzer and other crushers of the game, do check out carrotcorner.com and subscribe to our new subscription video library for all of that juicy content. All right, guys. Thanks so much again, Marco. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'm enjoying to be working with you, the Carrot Corner. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And as I said, if you want even more content, I have some YouTube stuff that's free, you know.
Don't tell them about free stuff. No, there's no more content. You have to subscribe. You have to subscribe at Carrot Corner. No, High Low Poker, great channel. Yeah. It's been recommended to me by loads of people even before I knew you in sort of real life, like outside of PokerStars. A lot of people were talking about your channel, so it's clearly on the up, and I know the quality of content there is awesome. So definitely check that out, guys. Yeah. All right, we'll see you next time at Carrot Corner then. Until then, play well, run good. See you later.
Yeah. Bye.